By 1914, his Keystone comedies were so popular that he took it on himself to take a step that was really unheard of at the time, to make a feature film. Very few feature films had been made in America. D.W. Griffith's Birth of a Nation was still a year away when Sennett started making a feature film, Tillie's Punctured Romance, hiring Marie Dressler from Broadway, putting Charley Chaplin and Mabel Normand into the cast, and really taking a chance because Mutual, who was distributing his films, didn't want anything longer than a 2-reel short at the longest, and even preferred the 1-reel shorts. So Tillie's Punctured Romance made history as the first comedy feature film.
And that's Charles Parrott again on the right there, aka Charley Chase. Charley had been working with Al Christie, who didn't have a studio yet before he joined Keystone, but he was obviously contributing ideas. He appeared in over 50 Keystone comedies between 1914 and 1916. During the time of this film, which is called The Rent Jumpers, from April 1915, he was part of the 6th Sennett unit. There were 6 units at this time. The first unit, which had the biggest budget, was Arbuckle's. Second unit was Charlie Murray. And this 6th unit featured Charlie, Mae Bush, and Fritz Shade. And they turned out some fine comedies, even though they had the smallest budget. And looking at the Rent Jumpers, Charley was obviously contributing ideas, and his influence is seen here in this film. It's very similar plot-wise to a later type of Roach Charley Chase comedy. He started directing for Sennett just a month after this film was made. He directed Versatile Villain and many others. He was writing with Ford Sterling, and he was then made supervisor at the Sennett Studios. During that time, he initiated the Gloria Swanson and Bobby Vernon series. Mae Bush, seen here, appeared in many, many Keystone comedies, and it's believed that she was the one that broke up the Mack and Mabel relationship. We won't go there now, but that could be why Mae Bush and Charley Chase never appeared in any films together later in the Roach Studios. Interesting that, if you think about it. Might have been a bit of bad feeling there. She had a few problems later, but she did appear in some major feature films, some of the von Stroheims, Lon Chaney's Unholy 3, and obviously her work with Laurel and Hardy in the Roach Studios is well known. So we've got a selection of people here in the early stages of their careers. We've got Edgar Kennedy, who was the cop in the house just now, Charlie Murray here. We've got Charles Parrott once again as a thug. Do you recognise which one he is? And the thug on the left is Eddie Klein. Yeah, soon to become one of Sennett's top directors, and also Buster Keaton's co-director for many of his classic films like Cops and 1 Week. Klein also directed some of W.C. Field's best remembered films of the 30s. Okay, so Charlie Chaplin had become so popular that Sennett just couldn't afford to keep him any longer. And his last 2-reeler was His Prehistoric Past. The final scene of Chaplin being woken up features Sid Chaplin, his older half-brother, who's playing the cop. Sid had appeared in small bit parts in a couple of Keystone films at the time, but as soon as Charlie left, Sid was promoted to star in his own series of films as Gussel. Here's a clip from his first one, Gussel the Golfer. Hey, look, it's Bobby Dunn. Let's hear it for Bobby. Oh, all right then. Sid had also been with the Fred Karno troupe and was pretty adept at falling over in style. Now, Sid made about a dozen Gussel films. This is Gussel's Day of Rest from March 1915 with his regular but scary-looking co-star Phyllis Allen. So Brent, if you can take up the story from here.
Okay.
Despite losing Chaplin, Sennett was still expanding, right?
At the same time, he was making more and more units with comedians such as Chester Conklin, Max Swain, in addition to Arbuckle, Norman, Chaplin, people like Rube Miller. Sennett, by that time, the Keystone comedies were so popular that they were cranking them out and releasing them for the Mutual Company.
This is a good example of the playing it rough style that Sennett did so well. This is Gussel Tied to Trouble from May 6, 1915. Wow, great shot, Phyllis. No, Phyllis, no. Oh, dear. Shades of the later Tom and Jerry type cartoon violence to come. So in his final Sennett film, A Submarine Pirate, Sid again demonstrates his skills. Sid moved on from Keystone about a year later to become Charlie's business manager. He did appear in some of Charlie's later First National films, and he then made a few successful features later in the 20s, including Charlie's Aunt, Man on the Box, and The Better Ole. Incidentally, the cook at the back on the left is Harold Lloyd. Yeah, it is. He joined Keystone around April-May 1915. He'd already made some of his Willie work films for Roach before joining Keystone. One of his major Keystone roles was in Courthouse Crooks, made in July 5th, 1915. He played a youth victimised by our new good friend Ford Sterling. Subtle as ever.